The sky turned a deep gray on the day of the funeral, as if the heavens themselves were mourning along with everyone gathered at Oak Hill Cemetery. 10-year-old twin girls Lily and Rose stood side by side, their small hands clasped tightly together as they watched the two caskets being lowered into the ground. Their matching black dresses, hastily purchased by their Aunt Patricia, hung loosely on their thin frames. Just 2 weeks ago, their world had been normal. Their mom had been baking cookies for the school bake sale, and their dad had been teaching them how to ride bikes without training wheels. Then came the phone call that changed everything. A rainy night, a slippery road, a truck driver who fell asleep at the wheel. In an instant, both their parents were gone. "It's time to go," Aunt Patricia said, her voice tight as she placed a hand on each girl's shoulder. The twins didn't move. They couldn't bear the thought of leaving their parents behind, buried beneath the cold earth. "Just one more minute," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of rain hitting the umbrellas. Rose nodded in agreement, tears streaming down her face and mixing with the raindrops. Patricia sighed loudly, checking her watch. "We have people coming to the house. We need to get back." There was no warmth in her voice, no understanding of the girl's pain, just impatience. Among the small crowd of mourners was Tom Wilson, a man in his late 30s with kind eyes and broad shoulders. He stood a respectful distance away, holding a tray of sandwiches he had volunteered to bring to the reception. His daughter Katie, about the same age as the twins, attended the same school. She wasn't at the funeral. Tom thought it might be too much for her, but he felt he should pay his respects. He had known the twins' father from neighborhood cookouts and school functions, not well, but enough to feel the ache of loss for these two little girls. As the mourners slowly made their way back to their cars, Tom observed the interaction between the twins and their aunt. There was something off about it, something that made him uneasy. The woman's body language was stiff, her actions mechanical as she hurried the children along. At the reception held at Patricia's house, the twins sat together on a love seat, barely touching the food on the plates someone had brought them. They looked lost, their eyes vacant as adults moved around them, speaking in hushed tones and occasionally patting their heads with awkward sympathy. Tom had just finished setting up the food table when he overheard Patricia talking to another woman in the kitchen. "I don't know what I'm going to do with them," Patricia said, not bothering to lower her voice. "I never wanted kids, that's why I never had any. Now I'm stuck with two of them. My sister always did this to me, always expected me to clean up her messes." The other woman made a sympathetic noise. "It's a lot to take on so suddenly." "It's more than a lot," Patricia continued, anger seeping into her voice. "It's a complete disruption of my life. Do you know how much it costs to raise two kids these days? My sister and her husband barely had life insurance. Just enough to cover the funeral and maybe a year of expenses for the girls. After that, it's all on me." Tom paused, his hand hovering over the sandwich tray. He felt like he was eavesdropping, but Patricia wasn't exactly being discreet. "Have you considered other options?" the woman asked quietly. "Surely there must be other family members." "There aren't, it's just me. Their father was an only child and his parents are both gone. Our parents died years ago. I'm literally the only option unless they go into the system." Patricia laughed bitterly. "And then I'd be the awful aunt who abandoned her orphaned nieces. Can you imagine what people would say?" Tom moved away, uncomfortable with what he had heard but unsure what, if anything, he should do. As he passed the living room, his eyes met Lily's. The girl looked at him with such sadness that it physically hurt him. He had seen that same look in his own daughter's eyes after her mother died of cancer 3 years ago. It was a look that said the world no longer made sense, that everything safe and familiar had been ripped away. The following days turned into weeks as the twins tried to adjust to life with Aunt Patricia. Their new bedroom was actually Patricia's home office, hastily cleared out with 2 twin beds crammed inside. Their belongings from their parents' house were still mostly in boxes, stacked in one corner because Patricia complained there wasn't enough storage space in her apartment. Patricia made it clear from the beginning that there would be changes to their routine. No more after-school activities because she couldn't handle the transportation. No more weekend outings because she needed her me time. No more bedtime stories because she was not that kind of person. At school, the twins became even quieter than before. Their teachers noticed the change but attributed it to grief. Their classmates didn't know what to say to them, so many said nothing at all. Only Katie, Tom's daughter, made regular efforts to sit with them at lunch or invite them to play at recess. "My dad says you can come over sometime if you want," Katie told them one day as they picked at their cafeteria food. "We have a treehouse in our backyard." The twins looked up with the first spark of interest they'd shown in weeks. "Really?" Rose asked. "Yeah. My dad built it for me after my mom died. He says it's good to have a place that's just yours when you're feeling sad." Lily and Rose exchanged glances. They hadn't told anyone how unhappy they were at Aunt Patricia's. They didn't want to seem ungrateful. After all, she had taken them in when no one else could. But living with her felt like being tolerated rather than wanted. That evening, when Patricia picked them up from school, grumbling about having to leave work early, Rose hesitantly mentioned Katie's invitation. "We don't have time for playdates," Patricia said dismissively. "Besides, I don't know these people. You can't just go to strangers' houses." "They're not strangers," Lily protested quietly. "Katie's in our class and her dad is really nice. He brought food to the funeral." Patricia's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Don't talk back to me. I'm doing the best I can here, and it would be nice if you showed some appreciation instead of constantly wanting more." "Do you know how much my life has changed because of you two? I had plans, you know. I was going to travel this summer." The twins fell silent, the brief moment of hope extinguished. Back at the apartment, they helped with dinner preparation as Patricia had instructed, carefully washing vegetables and setting the table exactly the way she liked it. One wrong move, a glass placed on the wrong side, a fork not perfectly aligned, would set off Patricia's temper. After dinner, while Patricia watched her favorite TV shows, the twins retreated to their room. They took out the photo album they had managed to save from their parents' house, one of the few personal items Patricia had allowed them to keep out rather than stored in boxes. "Do you think they can see us?" Lily whispered, tracing their mother's smiling face in a photo from their last birthday party. Rose shrugged, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know. I hope not. They'd be so sad to see us now." "I miss them so much," Lily said, her voice breaking. "I miss our house and my bed and my books. I miss the way Dad would swing us around until we got dizzy. I miss Mom's pancakes on Sunday mornings." Rose nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Neither girl heard the door creak slightly as Patricia paused outside their room, listening to their conversation. For a brief moment, something like guilt flickered across her face, but it quickly hardened into resentment. This wasn't what she had signed up for. This wasn't fair. These girls had invaded her carefully ordered life, and every day their presence reminded her of the sister she had always competed with. The sister who had always seemed to have everything Patricia wanted: a loving husband, beautiful children, a perfect life. Until it was all taken away in an instant. Patricia walked away from the door, a decision forming in her mind. This arrangement wasn't working for anyone. The girls were miserable, and so was she. Something would have to change, and soon. She just needed to figure out what her options were. After all, she hadn't asked for any of this. It wasn't her fault her sister had died and left these children behind. Why should her entire life be derailed because of it? As the twins finally fell asleep that night, clutching their photo album between them, they were unaware that miles away, Tom Wilson sat at his kitchen table helping Katie with her homework and thinking about the sad-eyed twins who had lost everything. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about their situation. He had recognized the look in their aunt's eyes at the funeral. It was the look of someone who felt trapped. And in his experience, trapped people eventually looked for a way out, no matter the consequences. 3 weeks after the funeral, the weather turned cold and rainy, matching the atmosphere inside Patricia's apartment. The twins had been trying their best to follow all of Aunt Patricia's rules, but it seemed like every day brought a new one. Don't leave shoes by the door. Don't talk during Patricia's TV shows. Don't use too much hot water. Don't ask for seconds at dinner. The list went on and on. That Wednesday morning started like any other school day since they'd moved in with their aunt. The twins woke up at exactly 6:30 a.m., made their beds with hospital corners just as Patricia had taught them, and quietly got dressed for school. They tiptoed to the bathroom, careful not to make noise that might wake their aunt, who valued her SL. "Eep, above all else, do you think Aunt Patricia will let us join the school choir?" Rose whispered as she brushed her teeth. The permission slip had been in her backpack for 3 days, but she hadn't found the courage to ask yet. Lily shook her head. "She said no more after-school stuff, remember? Besides, who would pick us up? Rose's shoulders slumped. Before the accident, both twins had loved singing. Their mom used to say they were like little songbirds, always filling the house with music. Breakfast was a silent affair. Patricia emerged from her bedroom at 7:15, already dressed for her job at the insurance office. Her face set in its usual frown. "There are dishes in the sink from last night," she said by way of greeting. "I thought I told you to wash everything before bed." "We did wash everything," Lily said quietly. "Those must be from when you had your late snack." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying I'm lying? Or that I'm messy?" "No," both girls said quickly. They had learned that Patricia's questions were often traps. "It sounds like you're talking back," Patricia continued, pouring herself coffee. "I don't appreciate that attitude, especially after everything I've done for you two." The twins exchanged a look but said nothing more. They had also learned that sometimes silence was the only safe response. As they were leaving for school, Patricia handed them each a small paper bag. "Lunch," she said curtly. "And don't forget, I have my book club tonight, so you'll be on your own for dinner. There's peanut butter in the pantry." The girls nodded, accepting the paper bags that they knew contained the same thing as always. A single sandwich, usually just cheese between two slices of bread, a small apple, and a napkin. No snacks, no treats, no little notes like their mother used to tuck into their lunch boxes. School that day dragged on endlessly. During math class, Rose stared out the window at the gathering storm clouds, thinking about how different life had become. Their old house had been full of color and noise and warmth. Their parents had encouraged them to be themselves, to explore their interests, to ask questions. Now they lived in a world of gray. Gray walls, gray moods, gray future. At lunch, they discovered that Patricia had been in an even bigger hurry than usual that morning. Lily's bag contained only half a sandwich, and Rose's apple was rotten at the core. "Here, we can share mine," Lily offered, breaking her sandwich in two. Katie, who sat with them as usual, frowned at their meager lunch. Without saying a word, she divided her own lunch and pushed half across the table to the twins. "My dad always packs too much anyway," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The twins hesitated, then gratefully accepted the food. They had been losing weight since moving in with Patricia, their clothes hanging looser on their small frames each week. After school, they waited under the overhang by the front entrance as rain poured down in sheets. Patricia was late, as usual. Most of the other kids had already been picked up, the parking lot nearly empty except for a few teachers' cars. "Should we just walk?" Rose suggested, shivering in her thin jacket. Their aunt lived only about 10 blocks from the school, but the route included crossing several busy streets. Lily was about to agree when a familiar blue pickup truck pulled into the lot. It was Tom, Katie's dad, coming to pick up his daughter. Katie waved excitedly as her father parked and jogged through the rain with an umbrella. "Dad, can we give Lily and Rose a ride?" "Their aunt is super late again." Tom looked at the twins with concern. They were standing close together, both shivering, their backpacks clutched to their chests like shields. "Of course," he said without hesitation. "Where do you live?" "Pine Street Apartments," Lily said. "But we don't want to be any trouble." "It's no trouble at all," Tom assured them with a warm smile. "It's on our way home. No one should be walking in this weather." The ride to the apartment complex was the most comfortable the twins had felt in weeks. Tom's truck was warm and soft music played on the radio. Katie chatted happily about a science project, while her father asked the twins gentle questions about their day. He didn't pry or push when they gave short answers, just nodded understandingly. When they arrived at the apartment building, Tom frowned slightly. "Do you have a key to get in? Is your aunt home?" The twins looked at each other. "She has book club tonight," Rose explained. "But we know where the spare key is." Tom seemed hesitant to leave them, but the girls assured him they would be fine. They had been taking care of themselves for years, even before the accident. Their parents had both worked, so the twins had become quite self-sufficient. "Well, if you're sure," Tom said, still looking uncertain. "Katie and I are in the blue house on Maple Street, number 742, if you ever need anything. Anytime, day or night, okay?" The twins nodded politely, though they both knew Patricia would never allow them to visit. They thanked Tom for the ride and dashed through the rain to the building's entrance. Inside the apartment, they found a note from Patricia on the kitchen counter. "Clean the bathroom and vacuum the living room before I get home. Start your homework. No TV. With size too old for their young bodies, the twins set down their backpacks and began their chores. They worked in silence, each lost in her own thoughts, occasionally exchanging glances that said more than words could. By the time they finished cleaning, completed their homework, and made themselves peanut butter sandwiches for dinner, it was nearly 8:30 p.m. Patricia returned just after 9, bringing with her the smell of wine and the energy of someone looking for a fight. The twins were already in their pajamas, sitting on their beds reading library books. "This place is a mess," were her first words, though the apartment was spotless. "Didn't you see my note?" "We did everything on the list," Lily said cautiously. "We cleaned the bathroom and vacuumed the living room and then why are there crumbs on the kitchen counter?" Patricia demanded, her voice rising. "And who left their shoes in the middle of the hallway?" "I nearly tripped and broke my neck." The twins exchanged confused glances. They had been meticulously careful, knowing Patricia's tendency to find fault. "I'll clean up the crumbs," Rose offered, sliding off her bed. "No. What you'll do is show some respect and gratitude," Patricia shouted, her face flushing red. "I gave up my whole life for you two, and this is how you repay me?" "By turning my home into a pigsty." The twins froze, unsure how to respond to this unexpected outburst. They had seen Patricia irritable, impatient, and cold, but never like this. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "Sorry isn't good enough," Patricia snapped. "I'm sick of your sorry. I'm sick of everything about this situation." She ran her hands through her hair, pacing the small room. "This isn't working. I can't do this anymore." Fear gripped the twins. What did she mean? What was going to happen to them? "Go to sleep," Patricia said suddenly, her voice eerily calm. "We'll talk in the morning." But in the morning, Patricia was already gone when the twins woke up. She had left them money for school lunch and another note. "We need to discuss new arrangements tonight." The words sent chills down their spines. Throughout the school day, the twins could barely concentrate. During lunch, Katie noticed their distraction. "Are you guys okay?" she asked. "You seem really worried." Rose started to say they were fine, their standard response, but Lily suddenly burst into tears. "Our aunt said she can't do this anymore," she sobbed. "We think she wants to get rid of us," Katie's eyes widened. "Like send you to another relative?" Lily shook her head miserably. "There isn't anyone else. It's just her." "You could come live with us," Katie suggested immediately. "We have an extra room and my dad really likes you. He's always asking if you're okay." The twins managed weak smiles at their friend's loyalty, but they knew it wasn't that simple. Adults couldn't just take in random children because they felt sorry for them. The rain continued all day, growing heavier as afternoon approached. By the time the final bell rang, it was pouring again, the sky dark with storm clouds. The twins waited under the same overhang as the day before, watching other kids get picked up one by one. Patricia was later than usual. As the minutes ticked by, a sick feeling grew in the twins' stomachs. Something wasn't right. After an hour of waiting, they decided to walk home, huddling together under Rose's small umbrella. When they finally reached the apartment building, soaking wet despite the umbrella, they discovered something horrifying. Their backpacks, clothes, books, and the few personal belongings Patricia had allowed them to keep out of storage were piled in garbage bags on the covered porch of the building. Taped to one bag was an envelope. With shaking hands, Lily opened it. Inside was a short note. "I can't do this anymore. I've contacted social services. They'll pick you up tomorrow. The building manager knows you're here. He'll let you sleep in the laundry room tonight." Rose read the note over her sister's shoulder, her face going pale. "She kicked us out," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She just left us here." Lily tried the door to the building, but her key no longer worked. Patricia had changed the locks. They knocked, but no one came to the door. The rain poured down, soaking through their clothes, plastering their hair to their heads. Their thin jackets provided almost no protection against the increasingly cold wind. They huddled together on the porch steps, surrounded by their belongings in trash bags, trying to decide what to do. Should they wait for the building manager? Try to find a phone to call someone? But who would they call? As darkness fell and the temperature dropped, the twins grew increasingly desperate. They were cold, wet, hungry, and scared. Just when they had reached the point of true panic, headlights swept across the parking lot. A blue pickup truck pulled to a stop, and Tom Wilson stepped out, concern etched on his face. He had been dropping off his daughter at a friend's house for a sleepover when he noticed the two small figures huddled on the porch steps of the apartment building. Something made him look twice, and with a shock he recognized the twins. "Lily? Rose?" he called, jogging through the rain towards them. "What are you doing out here?" The twins looked up, their faces streaked with a mixture of rain and tears. They were beyond the point of hiding their situation, beyond the point of polite pretense. "Our aunt kicked us out," Lily said, her voice small and broken. "She left us here with our stuff and changed the locks." Tom stared at them in disbelief, then at the garbage bag surrounding them. His expression shifted from shock to anger, then to deep concern. Without hesitation, he pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around the girl's shoulders. "Come with me," he said gently. "Let's get you warm and dry, and then we'll figure this out together. I promise you're not alone in this." The twins looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. Then they nodded, gathering their sodden bags with Tom's help and following him to the truck. As they drove away from the apartment building, neither girl looked back. There was nothing there for them anymore. Just another place where they hadn't been wanted. Tom's blue pickup truck rumbled through the rain-soaked streets, windshield wipers working overtime against the downpour. In the passenger seat, the twins sat pressed together, sharing both the seatbelt and Tom's oversized jacket. They were silent, their small bodies shivering despite the truck's heater blasting warm air. "It's not far now," Tom said, glancing at them with concern. The girls looked like half-drowned kittens, their hair plastered to their pale faces, their clothes soaked through. But what worried him more was the look in their eyes, a mixture of shock, fear, and something worse, resignation. As if being abandoned on a rainy doorstep was somehow something they deserved. The truck turned onto Maple Street, and Tom pointed out his house as they approached. "There it is, number 742, the blue one with the big oak tree in the front yard." It was a modest two-story home with warm yellow light glowing from several windows. Nothing fancy, just a regular family house with slightly peeling paint on the porch railings and a bicycle leaning against the garage. To the twins, however, it looked like something from a dream, the kind of normal, stable place they had once taken for granted. "Katie's at a sleepover tonight," Tom explained as he parked in the driveway. "But she'll be thrilled to see you in the morning." He paused, then added gently, "That is, if you're still here. I don't want to pressure you, but you're welcome to stay until we figure things out." The twins nodded but said nothing. They were beyond words, beyond even tears now. Tom seemed to understand their silence as he helped them gather their trash bags from the truck bed. Wincing at the sight of the girls' entire lives reduced to such undignified containers. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and something sweet like cinnamon. It wasn't perfectly tidy. There were shoes by the door, a jacket slung over the staircase railing, and what looked like a half-finished model airplane spread across the dining room table. But it felt lived in and warm in a way Patricia's sterile apartment never had. "First things first," Tom said, setting down the bags in the hallway. "Let's get you dry and warm. The bathroom's upstairs, first door on the right. I'll find you some clean clothes to change into." 15 minutes later, the twins sat at the kitchen table wrapped in oversized sweatshirts that belonged to Katie, their wet hair wrapped in towels, their hands clutching mugs of hot chocolate. Tom had added extra marshmallows without being asked, something their mother would have done. "I should call someone," Tom said, mostly to himself. "Social services, I guess. Or the police." He ran a hand through his hair, looking troubled. "What your aunt did, it's not just wrong, it's illegal. You can't just abandon children like that." "She left a note," Lily said, speaking for the first time since they'd arrived. She pulled the crumpled paper from her pocket and handed it to Tom. He read it, his expression darkening. "She says she contacted social services, but I'm betting she didn't. That would mean admitting what she planned to do." He looked up at them. "Did she ever mention this to you? Give you any warning?" Rose shook her head. "This morning she left a note saying we needed to discuss new arrangements. When we got home, our stuff was on the porch." Tom took a deep breath, visibly trying to control his anger. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. It's too late to call anyone tonight, and I'm not sending you back out there in this weather. You'll stay here, get some rest, and tomorrow we'll sort this out properly. The guest room has a queen bed. Will that be okay? I know you probably want your own space, but..." "It's fine," Lily interrupted, her voice small but firm. "We always share anyway." Tom nodded. "Good. That's good." He hesitated, then added, "I'm really sorry this happened to you." You deserve so much better." Something in his tone, the genuine care behind his words, broke through the numbness that had enveloped the twins since finding their belongings on the porch. Rose's face crumpled first, then Lily's, and suddenly they were both sobbing, deep, gut-wrenching sobs that seemed to come from someplace they'd kept sealed shut since the funeral. Tom didn't try to hush them or offer empty reassurances. He simply moved his chair closer and put a gentle hand on each of their shoulders, letting them cry it out. When the storm of tears finally subsided, he handed them tissues and refilled their hot chocolate without comment, understanding that sometimes words weren't needed. Later, after a simple dinner of grilled cheese sandwiches, the twins ate ravenously, making Tom wonder how well they'd been fed at Patricia's. He showed them to the guest room. It was a cozy space with light blue walls, a patchwork quilt on the bed, and a small bookshelf filled with paperbacks. "Bathroom's just across the hall," Tom said. "I put out new toothbrushes for you. If you need anything during the night, my room's at the end of the hall. Don't hesitate to wake me, okay?" The twins nodded, looking small and lost in Katie's borrowed pajamas. "One more thing," Tom added, his voice gentle. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know you're safe here. I promise I won't let anyone hurt you again." After he left, closing the door softly behind him, the twins looked at each other. "Do you think he means it?" Rose whispered. Lily shrugged, climbing onto the bed. "I don't know. Grown-ups say lots of things. He seems different," Rose insisted, joining her sister. The bed was soft, the blankets clean and warm. "Not like Aunt Patricia." "Maybe," Lily conceded. "But tomorrow social services will come and they'll probably split us up. That's what happens to kids like us." Rose's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I don't want to be separated from you. You're all I have left." Lily wrapped her arms around her twin, their wet heads pressed together. "We won't let them split us up," she promised fiercely. "We'll run away first." Down the hall, Tom sat at his desk, phone in hand, a troubled expression on his face. He had just spent the last hour making calls, first to a friend who was a family lawyer, then to another who worked for the county. The situation was complicated. As the lawyer had explained, abandonment was grounds for emergency removal, but without proof beyond the note, it would be Patricia's word against the twins. And even if social services did intervene, there was no guarantee the girls would be placed together, especially on short notice. Foster homes with openings for 2 children are rare, his friend had said, especially in this county. Budget cuts have hit us hard. Tom stared at the family photo on his desk, himself, Katie, and his late wife Lisa, taken at the beach 3 months before her diagnosis. Lisa would know what to do in this situation. She had always been the one with the big heart, the one who brought home stray animals and volunteered at homeless shelters. What would she tell him now? The answer came to him immediately, clear as if she had whispered it in his ear. "You know what to do, Tom. Those girls need someone to fight for them." With a deep breath, Tom made one more call, this time to his sister in Cleveland. "Jenny, it's Tom. I need a huge favor. Could Katie stay with you for a few days next week? I need to take some time off work to deal with something important." The next morning, the twins woke to the smell of pancakes and the sound of laughter downstairs. For a disorienting moment, they thought they were back home with their parents. Then reality crashed back and they remembered where they were. They found Tom in the kitchen flipping pancakes while Katie, back from her sleepover, set the table. The girl let out a squeal of delight when she saw the twins. "You're here," she exclaimed, rushing over to hug them both. "Dad said you might be staying with us for a while." "Is that true?" The twins glanced uncertainly at Tom, who gave them a reassuring nod. "I thought we'd talk about that after breakfast," he said, sliding perfect golden pancakes onto plates. "Right now, let's just focus on getting some food into everyone." Breakfast was a revelation for the twins. After weeks of Patricia's strict rationing and cold disapproval, sitting at a table with people who passed syrup with smiles and asked if they wanted seconds felt surreal. Katie chattered happily about her sleepover, seemingly unfazed by the sudden appearance of her classmates at her breakfast table. Tom watched the twins carefully, noting how they initially took tiny portions until he gently encouraged them to take more, how they kept shooting nervous glances his way as if expecting the warm atmosphere to shatter at any moment. After the dishes were cleared, Tom suggested Katie show the twins her treehouse while he made a few more phone calls. The girls eagerly agreed, and soon all three were climbing the sturdy wooden ladder to the small structure, nestled in the branches of the massive oak tree. My dad built this after my mom died, Katie explained as they settled onto cushions inside the cozy space. He said everyone needs a place to go when they're sad, somewhere that feels just theirs. Your mom died too? Rose asked softly. Katie nodded. 3 years ago, cancer. She traced a heart carved into the wooden wall. It was really hard for a long time. Dad and I were super sad. He says we're still sad sometimes, and that's okay. But we're also happy again, too. The twins exchanged a glance. The idea of ever being happy again seemed impossible right now. What's going to happen to us? Lily asked suddenly. Katie shrugged. I don't know for sure, but last night I heard Dad talking on the phone about becoming your guardian. Do you know what that means? The twins shook their heads. It's like when someone takes care of you legally when your parents can't, Katie explained. My friend Zach lives with his grandma, who's his guardian because his mom is really sick. But your dad isn't related to us, Rose pointed out. I don't think that matters, Katie said confidently. My dad helps people, it's what he does. Before Mom got sick, they were planning to adopt a baby from another country. And he's really good at being a dad. She looked at them hopefully. Would you want to stay here with us? The twins didn't answer, afraid to even consider such a possibility. Hoping for good things had only led to disappointment lately. Meanwhile, inside the house, Tom was on the phone with a social worker named Diane, whom his lawyer friend had recommended. The situation is unusual. I grant you, Tom was saying, but these girls have nowhere else to go. Their aunt literally abandoned them in the rain with their belongings in garbage bags. He listened for a moment, then continued. Yes, I understand temporary emergency custody is different from guardianship. I'm willing to go through whatever process is necessary. These children deserve stability. There was another pause as Diane spoke. Tom's face tightened. Separate foster homes is not an acceptable option, he said firmly. These girls just lost their parents. They shouldn't lose each other too. After he hung up, Tom sat heavily at the kitchen table, running his hands over his face. The road ahead would not be easy. As a single father with a full-time job, he would face scrutiny as a potential guardian for the twins. Patricia might fight the arrangement out of pride or spite. The legal system moved slowly and was often overburdened and underfunded. But looking out the window at the three girls laughing in the treehouse, Tom knew he had no choice but to try. A soft knock at the back door interrupted his thoughts. It was his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, holding a casserole dish. I saw the little girls going up to the treehouse, she said when Tom opened the door. Katie mentioned at our book club that some friends might be staying with you for a while. I thought you could use some extra food. Tom accepted the dish with genuine gratitude. Thanks, Mrs. Chen, it's a complicated situation. The elderly woman nodded wisely. Children need stability and love. You have plenty of both to give. She patted his arm. If you need help, babysitting, cooking, whatever, just ask. It takes a village, as they say. As Mrs. Chen left, Tom felt a weight lift slightly from his shoulders. He wasn't alone in this. He had friends, neighbors, a community. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough to help two traumatized little girls find their way back to happiness. That afternoon, Diane the social worker came to the house. The twins sat stiffly on the couch, holding hands so tightly their knuckles turned white as the woman asked them questions about their aunt, about how they had been treated, about the events of the previous day. Tom sat nearby, trying to be supportive without influencing their answers. And how do you feel about potentially staying here with Mr. Wilson and Katie? Diane asked finally. The twins exchanged a look, their silent twin communication that had become even more pronounced since their parents' death. We like it here, Lily said carefully, but we don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden, Tom said quickly, then looked apologetically at Diane for interrupting. It's okay, the social worker said with a small smile. She turned back to the twins. What Lily means is that you deserve a safe, stable home where you're wanted. That's not a burden. It's a right that every child has. We want to stay together, Rose added, her voice small but determined. No matter what. We promised our parents we'd always look out for each other. Diane nodded, making a note in her file. I understand, and I'll do my best to honor that promise. She looked at Tom. I need to make a few more calls and file some paperwork. For tonight, the girls can stay here under emergency placement, but we'll need to formalize things quickly. After Diane left, promising to return the next day, an awkward silence fell over the living room. The twins still sat on the couch looking uncertain. "So," Tom said finally, "it looks like you'll be staying here at least for tonight. Maybe longer if everything works out. How do you feel about that?" The twins looked at each other again, having one of their silent conversations. Then Rose spoke, her voice hesitant. "Why would you want us? You don't even know us." The question caught Tom off guard with its directness. But he recognized the fear behind it. The fear of being unwanted, of being a burden, of being abandoned again. "I know enough," he said simply. "I know you're kind to my daughter. I know you're brave and strong after everything you've been through. I know you deserve better than what's happened to you." He paused, then added, "And I know what it's like to have your world fall apart. When my wife died, Katie and I were lost. We had to learn how to be a family again. Just the two of us. It was hard, but we did it. And there's room in our family for you two if you want that." For the first time since arriving, Lily gave a tiny, genuine smile. "I think we'd like that," she whispered, and Rose nodded in agreement. From the doorway, Katie watched the exchange with a mix of hope and uncertainty. She had lost her mother, but she still had her father. These girls had lost everything. Could sharing her father, her home, her life really help heal such enormous loss? She didn't know, but as her dad had always taught her, sometimes the bravest thing you could do was try. "Does this mean I finally get to be a big sister?" she asked, stepping into the room. "Because I've always wanted sisters." The simple question broke the tension, and even the twins had to smile at Katie's earnest expression. "I think," Tom said carefully, "it means we're going to take this one day at a time and see where it leads us. But right now we're all together and you're all safe. That's what matters most." As evening fell, the four of them sat around the kitchen table eating Mrs. Chen's casserole and talking about practical matters, where the twins would go to school, how they would arrange the guest room to make it feel more like their own space, what their favorite foods were. It wasn't a perfect solution, and there would be many challenges ahead. But for the first time since their parents' death, the twins felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. The twins had been living with Tom and Katie for 2 weeks when the first real challenge to their new arrangement arrived in the form of a letter. Tom stood in the kitchen reading it, his face growing increasingly troubled as the girls ate breakfast. "Everything okay, Dad?" Katie asked, noticing her father's expression. Tom folded the letter and tucked it into his pocket, forcing a smile. "Just grown-up stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." But the way his eyes lingered on the twins told a different story. After dropping the girls at school, Tom drove straight to his lawyer's office. Frank Lee had been his friend since college, and despite specializing in corporate law rather than family matters, he had agreed to help Tom navigate the complex legal situation with the twins. "They want to separate them," Tom said without preamble, slapping the letter down on Frank's desk. "The county says they don't have enough foster homes that can take siblings, so they're planning to place them in different homes until a permanent solution can be found." Frank picked up the letter, scanning it with a frown. "This is unfortunately common," he said. "The system is overcrowded and underfunded." "It's unacceptable," Tom insisted, pacing the small office. "Those girls have lost everything: their parents, their home, their sense of security. The only constant they have left is each other. I can't let them be separated." Frank leaned back in his chair. "What are you proposing, Tom?" "I want to apply for guardianship." "Permanent guardianship?" The lawyer raised his eyebrows. "That's a big step. You've only known these children for a short time." "I know enough," Tom said, echoing what he had told the twins days earlier. "I know they're good kids who've had terrible luck. I know my daughter has bonded with them already, and I know I can't stand by and watch them get shuffled through the system and torn apart from each other." Frank sighed, rubbing his temple. "It won't be easy. Single father, full-time job, already raising one child, and you're not a relative. The courts generally prefer to place children with family members. Their aunt abandoned them in the rain," Tom reminded him. "She's the only family they have, and she made it clear she doesn't want them. Even so, she might contest your petition out of spite or pride, and the state will put you through a rigorous evaluation process: home studies, background checks, financial reviews, character references, the works." Tom sat down across from his friend, determination written across his face. "Tell me what to do, Frank. Whatever it takes, I'll do it. Later that afternoon, Tom sat on a bench outside the school waiting for the final bell. The conversation with Frank had been sobering. The path to guardianship would be difficult, expensive, and uncertain. But Tom had made his decision. Now he just needed to find the right way to explain the situation to the girls without frightening them. As children began streaming out of the building, Tom spotted the three girls walking together. Katie was gesturing animatedly as she told some story, and the twins were actually smiling. Small, tentative smiles, but real ones. The sight strengthened Tom's resolve. Those smiles were worth fighting for. How about ice cream? He suggested when they reached him. I think we need to have a family meeting, and ice cream makes everything better. The girls agreed enthusiastically, though the twins exchanged a worried glance at the words, family meeting. In their experience, such meetings rarely brought good news. At the ice cream parlor, Tom waited until everyone had their treats before broaching the subject. I got a letter today from social services, he began carefully. They're trying to figure out permanent living arrangements for you two. The twins tensed visibly, their ice cream forgotten. They're thinking about separating us, aren't they? Lily asked, her voice barely audible. Tom was taken aback by her perceptiveness, then remembered these girls had been forced to grow up too fast. That's what they're considering, he admitted. But I'm not going to let that happen. How can you stop it? Rose asked, tears welling in her eyes. You're not our dad. No, I'm not, Tom agreed gently, but I'd like to be your guardian if you'll have me. What's a guardian? Lily asked. It means I'd be legally responsible for you, for making sure you have a home, food, education, medical care, all the things parents usually provide. It means you'd live with Katie and me permanently, or at least until you're grown up. The twins stared at him, hope and disbelief warring on their faces. You want us? Rose whispered. For real? Not just because you feel sorry for us. Tom set down his ice cream cup and leaned forward. I want you because you're amazing kids who deserve a stable home. I want you because in just 2 weeks you've already brought so much to our lives. And yes, I care about what happens to you. That's not pity, it's just being human. Katie, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. We'd be like a real family, she said. Not the same as before for any of us, but still good. She looked earnestly at the twins. I always wanted sisters. Rose looked at Lily, their silent twin communication in full effect. After a long moment, Lily turned back to Tom. What do we need to do? Tom felt a weight lift from his shoulders. First, we need to tell the social worker that this is what we all want. Then there'll be some hoops to jump through, interviews, home visits, that sort of thing. It might take a while and it might get complicated, but I promise I'll fight for you every step of the way. What about our aunt? Rose asked. Will she try to stop you? It was a good question, and one Tom had been pondering since his meeting with Frank. I don't know, he admitted, but even if she does, we'll handle it together. As it turned out, they didn't have to wait long to find out Patricia's position. The very next day, Tom received a call from Diane, the social worker. Patricia is contesting the emergency placement, Diane said without preamble. She claims she never abandoned the girls, that she just stepped out for a few hours and returned to find them gone. She's demanding their return. Tom's grip tightened on the phone. That's a lie. She left them with their belongings in garbage bags and a note saying she'd contacted you. The building manager was supposed to let them sleep in the laundry room, for God's sake. I believe you, Diane assured him. But without the note, we have the note, Tom interrupted. Lily kept it. And I took photos of their belongings in those trash bags before we brought them inside. There was a pause on the line. That's very helpful, Diane said finally. We'll need those as evidence. But Tom, you should prepare yourself. Patricia is claiming you've essentially kidnapped her nieces. She's threatening legal action. Tom felt a surge of anger, quickly followed by determination. Let her try. Those girls are staying right here where they're safe. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, court filings, and visits from various officials. The case that had seemed straightforward, an aunt who abandoned her nieces versus a stable home willing to take them in, became increasingly complicated as Patricia dug in her heels. She doesn't even want them. Tom ranted one evening to his sister Jenny, who had come to help with the girls while he dealt with the legal issues. She made that abundantly clear. Why is she fighting this? Jenny, who had always been the more perceptive of the two siblings, shook her head. It's not about the twins. It's about her pride. Admitting she abandoned them would mean admitting she failed. Some people would rather double down on a mistake than acknowledge they made one. Meanwhile, the twins tried to carry on as normally as possible, going to school, doing homework, slowly beginning to participate in family activities. But the strain showed in small ways. Nightmares that left them screaming for parents who couldn't come. Sudden withdrawals into silence when the topic of the future arose. Fierce protectiveness of each other that sometimes excluded even Katie. The case went before a family court judge for a preliminary hearing 3 weeks after Patricia filed her objection. Tom sat nervously in the courtroom, dressed in his best suit while Frank arranged papers beside him. Across the aisle, Patricia sat with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit. Judge Harriet Powell, a stern-faced woman with silver hair, surveyed the courtroom over her glasses. Before we begin, I want to be clear. My only concern is the welfare of these children. This is not about adult egos or pride or convenience. It's about 2 vulnerable young girls who have suffered an enormous loss and deserve stability and care. She looked pointedly at both Tom and Patricia. With that in mind, let's proceed. Patricia's lawyer went first, painting a picture of a woman overwhelmed by unexpected responsibility, but who had never intended to truly abandon her nieces. She claimed Patricia had only stepped out for a few hours to gather her thoughts after a difficult day, and had been devastated to find the girls gone when she returned. My client acknowledges she made a poor decision in leaving the children alone, the lawyer conceded, but she was under extreme stress, having suddenly become responsible for 2 grieving children with minimal financial support. She's since realized her mistake and is committed to providing a proper home for her nieces, who are, after all, her blood relatives. When it was Frank's turn, he presented the evidence methodically, the note Patricia had left, which directly contradicted her story about stepping out temporarily, photos of the twins' belongings in garbage bags, statements from the building manager confirming Patricia had instructed him to let the girls sleep in the laundry room, and most damning, records showing Patricia had changed the locks the same day she left the note. This was not a momentary lapse in judgment, Frank argued. This was a calculated decision to abandon 2 vulnerable children who had already lost everything. And while Ms. Peterson now claims she wants the twins back, we have to question her motives and her ability to provide the emotional support these children desperately need. The judge listened carefully to both sides, occasionally asking pointed questions. When the lawyers had finished, she looked at both parties. "I'd like to speak with the children privately in my chambers," she announced, "and then I'll hear character statements." The twins were understandably terrified about meeting the judge alone, but they returned from her chambers looking slightly less anxious. What was said remained between them and Judge Powell, but when it was time for character statements, the courtroom filled with people speaking on Tom's behalf. Katie's teacher, describing how the twins had begun to open up in class. Mrs. Chen, testifying to Tom's skills as a devoted father. Tom's boss, confirming the flexible work arrangements that would allow Tom to care for 3 children. Even the school counselor, who spoke about the progress the twins had made in their grief sessions since finding stability in Tom's home. For Patricia, only 2 people spoke, her book club friend, who seemed uncomfortable and spoke only vaguely about Patricia's good intentions, and Patricia herself, who insisted she had made a mistake but deserved another chance with her sister's children. At the end of the long day, Judge Powell looked tired but resolute. "This is a complex case that requires careful consideration. I'm going to take everything I've heard today under advisement. In the meantime, the twins will remain in Mr. Wilson's EMA. Emergency custody, with supervised visitation for Ms. Peterson if she desires." Patricia's face flushed with anger at this announcement, but her lawyer quickly whispered something that made her compose herself. Outside the courthouse, Tom felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The twins would stay with him for now, but nothing was settled yet. As they walked to the car, Lily suddenly slipped her small hand into his. "Did we do okay?" she asked quietly. Tom squeezed her hand gently. "You did great. You both did. I'm really proud of you." "The judge asked us where we want to live," Rose volunteered. "We told her we want to stay with you and Katie." Tom felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you for trusting me," he managed to say. Over the next few days, more complications arose. Patricia, perhaps sensing she was losing ground, changed tactics. She began calling the school, insisting on her right to information about the twins as their legal relative. She showed up at their therapy sessions, creating scenes that left the girls shaken and regressing in their progress. She even appeared at Tom's workplace once, accusing him of turning the twins against her. Frank advised Tom to document everything while they awaited the judge's decision. "This behavior actually helps our case," he explained. "It shows she's more concerned with control than with the girls' well-being." A week after the hearing, Patricia made her most dramatic move yet. While Tom was at work and the girls were at school, she showed up at his house with a moving truck and her own key, apparently copied from one the twins had had in their belongings. Mrs. Chen, ever vigilant, spotted Patricia trying to enter the house and immediately called both Tom and the police. By the time Tom arrived, breathless and terrified, 2 police officers were explaining to a furious Patricia that without a court order, she had no right to enter the home or remove any property. "They're my nieces," she shouted as Tom approached. "Their things belong with me. He's turned them against their own family." One of the officers turned to Tom. "Sir, do you have documentation of your current custody arrangement?" Thankfully, Tom had taken to carrying copies of all legal papers with him. He produced the emergency custody order, which the officer reviewed carefully before turning back to Patricia. "Ma'am, according to this, the children are legally in Mr. Wilson's care pending the court's final decision. If you attempt to enter this property again without permission, you could be charged with trespassing or even attempted kidnapping." Patricia's face contorted with rage, but something in the officer's tone finally got through to her. She left, but not before pointing a finger at Tom. "This isn't over. Those girls belong with real family, not some stranger who's playing hero." The incident shook Tom deeply. That night, after the girls were in bed, he sat at his kitchen table with Jenny, voicing his fears. What if she's right? What if they'd be better off with real family, even if it's her? Jenny looked at her brother with exasperation. "Tom Wilson, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard you say. Family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up, who cares, who puts in the work." She reached across the table to grasp his hand. "You've done more for those girls in a few weeks than that woman did in the entire time she had them. You are their family now in all the ways that matter." 2 days later, Judge Powell's clerk called to inform them that the judge had reached her decision and wanted all parties in court the following morning. That night, none of the Wilsons or the twins got much sleep. The girls were quiet at breakfast, pushing food around their plates rather than eating it. "Whatever happens today," Tom said gently, "I want you to know that Katie and I consider you part of our family now. No piece of paper can change that." "But what if the judge says we have to go with Aunt Patricia?" Lily asked, voicing their deepest fear. Tom took a deep breath. "Then we'll appeal the decision. We'll keep fighting. I promised I wouldn't give up on you, and I meant it." The courtroom was tense as Judge Powell entered and took her seat. She surveyed the room briefly before speaking. "In cases like this, my job is to determine what arrangement serves the best interests of the children involved. I've reviewed all the evidence, spoken with the children, consulted with social services, and considered the arguments from both sides." She paused, looking directly at the twins who sat with the social worker. "Lily and Rose have suffered tremendous loss and instability. What they need now is a home where they are not just housed and fed, but understood, supported, and loved." Patricia straightened in her seat, a smug expression beginning to form on her face. "Ms. Peterson," the judge continued, turning to Patricia, "is the girl's only living relative, and under normal circumstances, that would weigh heavily in her favor. However, the evidence clearly shows that on April 15th, Ms. Peterson deliberately abandoned these children, leaving them without shelter or supervision, and took steps to prevent their return by changing the locks on her apartment. This action, along with the testimony regarding her treatment of the girls prior to that event, raises serious concerns about her capacity to provide the stable, nurturing environment these children require." Patricia's smugness faded, replaced by growing anger. "Mr. Wilson," Judge Powell continued, turning to Tom, "has no biological connection to these children. However, in the short time they have been in his care, he has demonstrated a genuine commitment to their welfare. He has maintained their school routine, secured appropriate counseling, accommodated their emotional needs, and most importantly, kept them together during a traumatic time." The character statements provided on his behalf paint a picture of a dedicated, capable parent who has opened his home and his heart to 2 children in desperate need of stability. The judge paused, arranging some papers before her. After careful consideration, I am granting temporary guardianship of Lily and Rose Mitchell to Thomas Wilson for a period of 6 months, after which the arrangement will be reviewed with the expectation of moving to permanent guardianship if all parties are thriving. Ms. Peterson will be granted limited visitation rights, to be supervised by social services and contingent upon her completion of parenting classes and counseling. Patricia shot to her feet. This is outrageous. They're my sister's children. You can't give them to a stranger. Ms. Peterson, the judge said firmly, my decision is based on the best interests of these children, not on your sense of entitlement. If you wish to contest this ruling, you may appeal, but I strongly suggest you use the next 6 months to reflect on your actions and how they have affected your nieces. She turned to Tom. Mr. Wilson, are you prepared to accept guardianship under these terms? Tom stood, his heart pounding but his voice steady. Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for trusting me with this responsibility. As they left the courthouse, the twins walked on either side of Tom, not quite touching him but staying close. The future was still uncertain. 6 months wasn't forever, and Patricia might yet appeal. But for now, they had won a significant victory. The twins would stay together, and they would stay with Tom and Katie. In the car, Katie broke the silence that had fallen over them. So does this mean we're officially a family now? Tom glanced in the rearview mirror at the twins. What do you think, girls? Are we a family? After a moment, Rose spoke, her voice quiet but clear. I think maybe we're learning how to be. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There would be challenges ahead, adjustments to make, wounds still to heal. But as Tom drove them all home, yes, home, he felt a deep certainty that they were on the right path. Sometimes families weren't born. They were built, one brave decision at a time. 6 months passed in a blur of ordinary days that slowly stitched together the fabric of their new life. The twins' room, no longer the guest room, had transformed from a blank slate into a space that reflected their emerging personalities. Rose's side featured colorful drawings and a small collection of stones and feathers she'd gathered on family walks. Lily's side held books stacked neatly on a shelf Tom had built, and a journal where she wrote stories she sometimes shared at dinner. Today marked exactly half a year since the judge had granted Tom temporary guardianship. The hearing for permanent guardianship was scheduled for next week, and while Frank assured them it was largely a formality given how well things had gone, tension hung in the air like invisible smoke. What if something goes wrong? Lily whispered to Rose as they got ready for school that morning. What if the judge changes her mind? Rose tied her shoelaces with unusual concentration. Tom says it's going to be okay, and he hasn't lied to us yet. It was true. Unlike the adults who had made and broken promises throughout their young lives, Tom had kept every word. When he said he'd be at their school performance, he arrived early with flowers. When he promised they could stay together, he fought through mountains of paperwork and court appearances to make it happen. When he said they were wanted, his daily actions proved it wasn't just talk. Downstairs, Tom was making lunches, tucking small notes into the twins' bags as he did every day. Today's read: remember, brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what matters even when you are scared. Love, Tom. He hesitated over that last part, as he always did. Not Dad. He'd never presumed to replace their father, but not the more distant Mr. Wilson either. Just Tom, the man who was learning to be whatever these girls needed him to be. Katie bounded into the kitchen, her backpack already on. Are we still having the special dinner tonight? She asked, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. Absolutely, Tom confirmed. Mrs. Chen is bringing her famous dumplings. Jenny's coming with that chocolate cake you all love, and I've managed not to burn the roast chicken so far. He glanced at the clock. Where are the twins? We need to leave in 5 minutes. Probably still deciding what to wear, Katie said with the worldly air of an almost 11-year-old. They want to look nice for the dinner. Rose tried on like 3 different shirts last night. Tom smiled at this typical preteen concern, marveling at how far they'd come. 6 months ago, the twins had owned only what fit in those garbage bags, and they'd been too traumatized to care about fashion. Now they had opinions about clothes, music, which cereals were best. They had started to inhabit their lives again instead of just enduring them. The dinner that night wasn't officially a celebration. Tom was careful not to tempt fate before the final hearing, but it had the feeling of one nonetheless. Mrs. Chen arrived with not only dumplings but also spring rolls, and a lucky bamboo plant for each of the girls. For new beginnings, she explained, showing them how to care for the plants. Jenny brought her twin boys, cousins the girls had grown close to over the past months. The house filled with noise and laughter as the children played a chaotic board game in the living room, while the adults finished preparing dinner. "They seem so different," Jenny remarked, watching the twins laughing at something Katie said. "When I first met them, they barely spoke above a whisper. Now look at them." Tom nodded, feeling a complex mix of pride and humility. He couldn't take credit for the girls' resilience. That strength had always been within them, but he was grateful to have provided the safe space where they could rediscover it. "Rose joined the school choir last month," he told his sister, "and Lily's teacher says she might skip ahead in math next year. They're amazing kids. I just wish—" He trailed off, not wanting to dampen the mood with thoughts of their parents who should have been here to see their daughters grow. Jenny squeezed his arm. "They'd be grateful, you know. Their parents. Wherever they are, they'd be so thankful that their girls found you." Dinner was a lively affair, with multiple conversations happening at once and second helpings all around. Tom noticed with satisfaction that the twins ate heartily. Another change from the early days when they would take tiny portions, afraid of appearing greedy. Now they knew there would always be enough in this house. After dinner, as everyone moved to the living room for cake, Tom's phone rang. Seeing Frank's number, he stepped onto the back porch to take the call. "Is everything okay?" he asked immediately, anxiety spiking.
"Nothing's changed with the hearing?"
"Everything's fine," Frank assured him. "Better than fine, actually. I just got a call from Patricia's lawyer. She's withdrawing her objection to the permanent guardianship." Tom sat down heavily on the porch steps. "What? Why?" "She's been fighting us every step of the way. Apparently she's taken a job in California," Frank explained. "Some big promotion she couldn't turn down. Her lawyer says she's realized the twins are better off with stability and doesn't want to disrupt their progress." Tom snorted. "More like she's realized being a guardian might interfere with her career and social life." "Probably," Frank agreed. "But honestly, Tom, this is the best outcome we could have hoped for. Without her objection, the hearing next week is just a formality. The judge has already indicated she favors making the guardianship permanent." After hanging up, Tom sat on the porch a moment longer, letting the news sink in. Part of him felt angry that Patricia could just walk away so easily when he'd had to fight for every inch of ground. But mostly he felt relief washing over him like a cool wave. The girls were going to stay. They were going to be a family, officially, legally, permanently. When he returned to the living room, the twins looked up at him with immediate concern. They had become experts at reading adult expressions, a survival skill honed through loss and uncertainty. "Is everything okay?" Lily asked, her cake forgotten. Tom smiled, sitting down between them on the couch. That was Frank on the phone. "I have some news." He glanced around the room at the expectant faces of their small community. Katie, Jenny, Mrs. Chen, all the people who had helped make this possible. "Your aunt has decided to move to California for work. She's withdrawn her objection to the permanent guardianship." The twins stared at him, processing this information. "Does that mean we get to stay? For real?" Rose asked cautiously. "It means that the hearing next week is just a formality," Tom confirmed. "The judge will make it official, but yes, you get to stay, for real. For good." Katie let out a whoop of joy and Jenny's twins clapped, picking up on the excitement though not fully understanding its cause. Mrs. Chen wiped tears from her eyes, murmuring something about fate and destiny. The twins, however, remained quiet, their expressions hard to read. Tom felt a flicker of uncertainty. After all this time, could they still be unsure about staying? "Is that okay with you two?" he asked softly. "I know we've never really talked about what would happen long term. If you have concerns or questions, we can discuss them. This is your life, your future. You should have a say." Rose glanced at Lily, their twin telepathy in full effect. Then Lily took a deep breath and spoke. "We've been afraid to ask because we didn't want to seem ungrateful, but if we stay forever and if you're our guardian, what should we call you?" Of all the questions Tom had prepared himself for, this wasn't one of them. "What would you like to call me?" he asked carefully. "Our dad was Dad," Rose said softly, "and you're not trying to replace him. We know that. But you're not just Tom either," Lily continued. "Not anymore. You're more than that." Tom felt a lump form in his throat. "You can call me whatever feels right to you." he managed to say. There's no pressure, no expectation. We can figure it out as we go. The twins exchanged another look, then Rose said hesitantly, Maybe. Could we try calling you Papa? It's different from Dad, but it still means family. Papa, Tom repeated, tasting the word. It felt right somehow, acknowledging his role in their lives without erasing what came before. I would be honored. Later that night, after their guest had gone home and Katie had fallen asleep watching a movie, Tom found the twins sitting on the porch swing in their pajamas, looking up at the stars. Couldn't sleep? He asked, joining them. Too excited, Lily admitted, and a little scared. What are you scared of? Tom asked gently. Rose hugged her knees to her chest. What if something happens to you too? What if we lose everything again? It was a fear Tom had anticipated, one that made perfect sense given their history. He chose his words carefully. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. I wish I could, but that's not how life works. What I can promise is that I will do everything in my power to keep you safe and to be here for you. And if something did happen, which it won't for a very long time, you have a whole community of people who care about you now. Jenny, Mrs. Chen, Katie's friends' parents, the school counselor. You would never be alone. The girls seemed to consider this, the porch swing creaking gently beneath them. Our mom used to say that love doesn't divide when you give it away, it multiplies, Lily said suddenly. I didn't really understand what she meant before. I think I'm starting to understand it now, Rose added. It's like, loving our parents doesn't mean we can't also love you and Katie. And you loving Katie doesn't mean there's less love for us. It just makes more love for everyone.